Welcome to the Love Your Life and Yourself podcast, the weekly show where science meets soul and mom chaos meets mind mastery. You're not just a mom. You're a woman with dreams, a career, a body that needs care, and a soul that craves more. This podcast is your permission slip to stop surviving and start thriving in motherhood, health, career, and stress resilience. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Rath, and every week we bring you actionable insights and transformative conversations to help you create a life you truly love. From evidence-based wellness strategies to authentic self-discovery, we'll explore what it takes to thrive through expert interviews and real unfiltered stories. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. You guys are in for a treat today. We have Cassie Hayes with us. She is a fourth generation entrepreneur, founder of Premier Ops Spot, systems queen, and mama of four. So what is her mission? It's helping women build simple, sustainable systems that don't just support your business, they support your life. And today we're talking about what it really looks to create systems that help you show up for the things you love without losing yourself in the process. So welcome, Cassie.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So we start all the podcasts off with this question. Mm-hmm. What does loving your life and yourself mean to you right now in this season of your life?
So this season is busier than any other season we have encountered so far. And so I think for me, it's kind of finding those glimmers. There's a Bible verse that says, like, Mary pondered these things in her heart. And I just love that because it's kind of this idea of number one, finding those like unexpected moments in your day that bring you joy. I oddly, maybe this isn't so odd, but my kids, now that they're varying ages and older, just whenever we're all in the same room together, I'm like so happy. Like we don't even have to be talking to each other, but we're all going in so many different directions. So like little moments like that. The other day, my husband and I were in the kitchen and I don't know, I like whispered something to him and he whispered something back to me. And it was kind of like a grown up joke. And I like belly laughed for about 30 seconds. So like just those little glimmers that just help you realize and appreciate, what you have. Are the things that are helping me to love my life, even when it's hard and even when it's busy and even when it feels chaotic and out of order. So
I love that. And I think it sounds like too simple, but it's extremely powerful. I just like think of that every day. Like, you're driving or you're in the midst of cleaning, up supper. And it's like, how can we have that gratitude and presence to be able to be like, wow, like this is really cool. Like, this is what I prayed for, however many years ago, or this is what I had hoped to have, even in, like you said, the mess and the chaos of it.
Yeah. I've got I have it on a shelf in our closet, but it says, I still remember the days I prayed for what I have now. And I like put it there where I can see it every day because it is sometimes, I don't know, when you kind of up level in any area, whether it's like more kids, a bigger house, the more things or people we're responsible for, the more we have to care for. And so our responsibility increases with the blessings that we have. So it's just sometimes important for me to remind myself, I did pray for this. And like I'm living some of the prayers that I prayed a long time ago. And I want to live in that space of being grateful and not being frustrated that I have more things to take care of. Right. So yeah, it's a good reminder.
I love that. Yeah. So let's tell our listeners a little bit about you. You're obviously incredible at systems and procedures, which let's be honest, that is not my strong suit. So maybe after this conversation, I'll book a one-on-one call with you, Casey. But talk to us about what is it that what's your superpower? I mean, the systems aspect, but tell us a little bit about your story and how you got there.
Yeah, so the easiest way to say it, and I think the simplest way that I've learned to say it, is I help people build simple, thoughtful systems, like you mentioned before, that allow them to step away from their business or step away from the chaos and without everything falling apart, and also without losing the personal touch. That's like really important to me and really important to my people. So, um, yeah, I am a fourth generation small business owner, as you mentioned. So I have kind of a unique perspective in that I grew up in a home watching my parents wear all the hats all the time. Up until I was about 5, I have some really good core memories with my dad. And then he launched his business and he was pretty much like absent for a lot of my growing up years. So, we did a couple different things. I was in college doing well, left because I thought our calling was to be working with this Christian group of business owners in a network marketing company. I feel like I got a business degree and like a self development degree when I was involved in that business. Great for learning, not so great for the pocketbook. So after we got married and had our first daughter, my husband was like, we can't keep doing this. Like we are going, in the hole. We're never going to like get ahead. So that was really sad that we had to make that decision. But yeah, after that, I worked in restaurants for a while. That kind of built my desire and skill set around like serving people. My mom and my grandpa were both always people. You know what I mean? Like my mom would go through the checkout lane and she'd be like, "Oh, hey Jane, how's your mom after her surgery?" And I'm like, "How?" Like it's the lady at Jewel, at the grocery store. So, and my grandpa was in insurance and he always called people by their name. And I have a memory of us going out to dinner and a pregnant lady was our waitress and she like ran outside like, "Mr. Galvin, you left me too much money." And he's like, no, like that's for you. So just like
Mm.
generosity and like really seeing people and doing what we can to help them feel seen and blessed is like again part of my story. And so I started working at our church, which is a whole kind of miracle in and of itself because I didn't have a degree. And I laugh because a lot of the job descriptions that they put me in were like, you have to have these credentials. And I was like, I don't. I just have my experience and like God opened this door for me. So that's where I really learned how to kind of streamline systems and how powerful they can be to help us serve people better. So, kind of merging the two things, like the business ownership side and that people hospitality gift that like my mom and her dad had, and pushing those two things together to be able to create systems that allow us to see people well and serve them well. When we have good systems, our brain space and our time is freed up for us to be present and to do the things we love. So, I mean, I love being that person for my clients, and I would say too, like, don't have shame if that's not your thing because you're good at probably so many other things that I'm not good
Mm-hmm.
at. So I love that idea of team and yeah, like personality tools and how do we help one another to reach our goals and collaborate in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, just for context, when you say you work for a church, we were talking before this, and it's not like a couple hundred people. Like this was a mega church that you got hired onto, which you think about some of these larger churches, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people you're serving. So when we're talking systems, it's not like, oh, just one or two people, right?
Right. Yeah,
Like
correct.
give us a little bit kind of the nitty-gritties of what you were doing in those roles.
Yeah. So when I first started, the church had 3 different services, and we were probably around like 7,000 people attending every weekend. So yes, it was quite a few. And I
Mhm.
was one of 3 people that were essentially doing the same job. So the way that we tried to overcome this idea, because with a mega church, like it sounds awesome, but the problem that we had was people just felt disconnected because the pastor obviously can't pastor 7,000 people on his own. So we kind of created these like mini pastoral communities, and each one of them had a pastor that was responsible for pastoring the people in that community. So on staff, what that looked like is 3 of us. There was one for our Saturday service and one each for the Sunday services. And we were the support people for the pastors over the different communities. So each community was like 75 to 200 people, just depending. And so when I first came on staff, the thing that I noticed immediately was that because there were three people doing the job, um, there was not one source of truth. So a practical example would be all of us had to order coffee for all of those pastoral leaders every single weekend. But there wasn't like one spreadsheet. And even the spreadsheet we had was like messy, and it was just, there wasn't a deadline for the leaders. And so our ministries that were trying to serve us, like the cafe who was getting our coffee ready, were so frustrated. And there was just so much human error because it was just all, not connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so thankfully, my manager, anytime I came to her and I was like, this is like really messy. Is it okay if I fix it? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I kind of kept putting in like, how do we fix this? And how do we have one source of truth? And what's the system that we build so that, the goal is that we have coffee so that the people can have community. And if we miss a coffee order, that doesn't happen. So how can we
Mm-hmm.
make sure that if we back it all the way up to the system, like it's clean and then people can just have their coffee and it's nice and lovely. So that's kind of where it started. I also started realizing that there were lots of areas to like templatize things. So each of those pastoral leaders was required to send one email a week to their community. The problem was they were all starting from scratch every single week. And I was like, if we're asking them to do this, shouldn't, and that was like 75 leaders at that time. So just imagine like, and also they were stipend. They were supposed to be 10 hours a month. They were not working 10 hours a month. They're probably, double that at least. And so I
Mm.
said, can we just create a template for them where we give them a blurb about what the sermon series is going to be that weekend? We give them like 3 events that are coming up so that they can tell their community about whichever ones they're participating in. And we can leave some space for them to write a pastoral message. And so that was another way where it's like, now instead of those leaders having to like sit in front of their computers for 3 hours and find all the information from all the different spots on our website, they were able to like copy, paste, write a pastoral message, and then they had more time to be on the phone with somebody who's like, grandma just passed away, or who were going through a financial crisis, or they were supposed to be the pastors, but all that admin stuff was like eating up all their time. So, as much as we could, I was trying to find ways to make it easier for them to do that more and do the admin stuff less. So, yeah, that's kind of, it was so fun and so rewarding because then I got to see how having those clean systems actually paid off and,
Right.
the people actually being served. So, yeah, it was really cool.
That is super neat. And it seems so small, right? Like, oh, you could play the game in your head of like it's just coffee, right? Or
Right.
it's just a newsletter email or it's just a weekly email, like no big deal. But when you realize when those systems and procedures are smoothly running, like you can serve in so many other ways and show up, in a higher, like more full potential, which is really cool. And I think that's the power of the systems. That's the power of having, being able to delegate and being able to systemize or stop, like, so let me ask you this. Maybe this is like just innately built in you. Um, like when you notice the coffee or when you notice the email, when we're like talking to our audience, what are possibly some ways that they could maybe realize like, oh, this is an area where I actually need to focus on to put a system in place or to delegate or to systemize in some way? Are there like little triggers or things that we could start to become aware of where we could really improve those?
Yeah. So you're asking like, how do we know when we need a system?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that awareness is something that maybe myself am not even aware of in certain aspects of my business. I'm like, oh,
Right.
I didn't even know that was a problem. And then,
Yes.
so I think like, how do we start to become aware of where our systems are failing or not producing and really kind of time sucking or not necessarily always time, but maybe from profitability or maybe from a true service of like, gosh, I can better serve my patients or my clients or my team by doing this.
Yeah. That's a really good question. So, um, the first thing I'm going to say is it might be slightly different for everybody based on like who
Sure.
you are, right? But what I
Mm-hmm.
think the most important thing is kind of what my counselor always tells me when she talks about like indicators that we're depressed or indicators that we're anxious. And
Mm-hmm.
those things are like, are you not sleeping? Are you having a hard time shutting your brain off? When you try to get quiet time, which I kind of like laugh internally every time I say that, because as moms, and especially if you're like working, quiet time, like, haha, that's so funny. But like, does your brain, is it calm and peaceful, or is it like trying to solve 10 million problems at once?
Mm.
The other thing that she always says that I think applies to this also is the things that bring you joy, are they not bringing you joy anymore? Like, are you finding
Mm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I used to love doing this thing, but now I hate it. Like, that's what a lot of my clients come to me when they're in a space where they're like, I love baking cakes for weddings. I hate dealing with all the invoices and all of the like other things. Or I love designing websites, but like, I just don't, I hate doing this part of it. And then they are almost at the point where honestly, they're like, I just have to throw in the towel. Like, I have to quit. I have to like go work for somebody else or find a different way to express myself because the parts that I have to do and I can't see a way to get away from, are draining me so much and making me like lose my love for this thing that I've loved for a long time. Um, yeah, I mean, my daughter like has danced since she was 2, and she had a coach that just was not a good coach for her first couple of years of high school. And it was like that. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, Mom, I want to quit. And I'm like, what? Like, she's loved it forever. So that's an extreme example, but if you can be self-aware enough to notice when you're feeling frustrated, um, then I think that helps. And I'll give like a quick example because I feel like this is practical and hopefully will help like moms. Um, I'm an Enneagram 1 and I love filling out forms because I feel like I know all the answers. Like, I know the right answers. I know what my name is. I know my address. Like, I don't have to overthink it. You know what I mean? But a couple weeks ago, we were in like the prepping for Maysember stage. And I was like registering all the kids for summer camps and getting them registered for school next year and making all the doctor's appointments for physicals and making sure they all had like their health requirements for the school. And I about lost it. I was like, babe, I
Mm.
cannot keep, I was talking to my husband. I'm like, I cannot keep doing this. Like, I'm done. Like, I cannot look at another form. I just can't. And so again, that's an indicator of like something that normally doesn't stress me out got me to the point where I was like, I want to go lay on a beach and like ignore everyone. So I think that's a good thing to pay attention to, is just like your heart posture towards whatever that thing is. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
It is. It is so helpful and it is so needed. I always say the same thing. Like, how does it feel? Like, are you actually listening to yourself? And I think we live in a world that glorifies this hustle and, hyper productivity and just like go, 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 do, 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 do. And even like yourself, like you enjoy doing, filling the forms out and,
Mm-hmm.
making this beautiful, calendar for the summer. But then there comes to a point where like burnout happens. And I think like to be aware of that and to know like, hey, I got to pause, I got to take a breath
Mm-hmm.
is so powerful.
Yeah.
So thank you. That is exactly how I would have explained it too.
Oh,
But
good.
and I'm super glad that we're on the same page.
Yeah, good.
So I think like for me personally, not like where organization and structure don't come easy to me. I think there's a lot of shame around the systems and or guilt or just like, oh, I don't even know where to start. And there's like so many different apps, right? Or planners or paper planners
Yeah.
or, you know, Google or,
Yeah.
all the things. So you, I mean, you have this bold statement of people over processes. So
Mhm.
what do you think? What's your take on like what is a good system?
Yeah, so I love this because I do have a lot of clients that come to me and they're like kind of like hiding behind their hands, oh, please don't like, and I'm like, no, no, it's okay. So the first thing I always say is the system won't work if you don't work the system. So the
Mm.
system that's a
Mhm.
good system is the one that you'll use, right? If you don't use it, it doesn't matter. We're building systems to like be present for what matters to us and have more energy to do what we love, not to impress people with like our fancy apps and like our color coded calendars. Like I also tell people like I use systems because otherwise I would fail at everything. Like I'm not exaggerating. From like the way that we do our grocery list and meal planning every week to yeah, like our Google Calendar with our family. Like my systems are put in place to fill the gaps of where I would fail by myself. So if you think about that too, it's like, whatever system works for you, just embrace that and use it. The other thing I would say is if it's not broke, don't fix it. I say this
Mm.
with my clients all the time. Like we'll map
Mhm.
out, their client journey and kind of how they onboard clients. It's probably the best way to say it. And when we map it, we're getting out every single step in that process. And they're usually like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much. I'm like, it's okay. We're going to start to automate some of this. But I always ask, like, hey, is doing this call at this point in the process, is it working? And they're like, sometimes they're like, yeah, it is. I'm like, okay, great, we'll keep it. But sometimes they're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, what if we did it before you did this step instead? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. So it's like, don't change things just for the sake of change. We're like being bombarded with so many messages online. And, if you have a business coach or a business bestie or like a best friend who's like, oh my gosh, I just got this like AI app. Like, I'm that friend. So, but like, we have to do the work to know ourselves well enough to again understand like what's going to be helpful for us. So that can be the hard part because it's not an overnight thing, right? Like self awareness and
Mhm.
self development is like a long, hopefully lifelong journey. So give yourself grace and time to work it out. And I would also say, like, try, fail, adjust. I have probably used like every single kind of paper planner that there ever was. And I finally found like a paper tablet that works for me because now I just have one notebook, like one thing I can carry around instead of like this one I use at church and this one's a journal, this one for counseling, and this one's my planner. Like too many things. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that one, instead of being metaphorical, it's actually like it's lightened my backpack on my back when I go places. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, think about like what systems will help you lighten your load, whether it's like metaphorically or literally. Um, and then,
I can attest to that too. I used to buy a planner like every December for the new year. I've bought like 7 different planners and it would work for like a month or 2 and then, by February or March it was like, "Oh crap, yeah, and then I was just, forgetting things because I wasn't using it
mhm,
and I was always like a paper person and I was reluctant to put everything on like a digital calendar. And finally I was like, all right, like you are missing too many things. Like you said,
mhm,
like it was this awareness of like, where am I failing? And I'm missing too many things. I'm missing appointments. So I just caved to Google Calendars and
mhm.
it's literally the best thing ever.
Yeah,
And now I can share it with my husband and be like, "Hey, you have to be here now,
yes,
right now, like
yes,
or in a couple days." So
totally.
I was the same way. Like something was working and then it stopped working
Mhm.
and that's okay. So you just adapt
Yes,
and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So I also think there are seasons of life where you're going to be more organized and you're going to have more systems. But there's certain parts of life where you get shaken, like yourself. You decided to leave your, I would say, like more corporate, maybe not corporate. I guess that's a lot of people to take care of, but
yeah,
your job at the church. And people lose parents or have a baby or stop working at a certain job. What do you say to those who maybe need like to reevaluate? Like where would you start, where would you not start? Like what do you say to someone who's maybe gone through something bigger that like is just like, oh my gosh, uh, what worked is not working anymore.
yeah. That's really hard. And we were talking before we started recording that like 2024 was kind of that type of year for me. My nervous
Mm-hmm.
system was shot from like a whole lifetime of over functioning, and Financially, we were in a hard spot. My husband was like switching careers. Like there were just, and then again, our kids, our older ones are 17, 14, and 12, and then our youngest is 8. So 4 kids at 3 schools, and our kids being in lots of activities, it was like I felt so out of control of my own calendar. Whereas even a couple years prior, when I launched my business, I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like I had coffees with my friends every Friday, and my schedule was like very well ordered. And so I would say the first thing is to like pay attention to what you need as a human and trust your gut. If you just had a baby, I I don't really think this is true, but like we have 4 kids, and I love that like beginning season of newborn. I'm not saying I had 4 kids because I wanted more of that, but I am saying that it's lovely. Like I know it's hard, and thankfully, like I didn't have to any postpartum depression at all, so it was probably different for me than women that might experience that. But I loved that season because no one was asking anything of me except take care of yourself and take care of your baby. Like that was my
Mm,
only job. And I loved it. So, like, lean into the season you're in. And like I said before, try to find like the glimmers. I know 2 a.m. feedings are not the best thing, but they were like my favorite because it was just me and my baby, and everything else was quiet. And I got to just really like be with them. So, the other thing I would say, like loss is another really big life changing thing. I have a friend slash client slash former coworker who experienced a significant loss a few years ago, and what she was telling me she was doing was she would make an appointment with her grief because she was a business owner, and she like
mm.
had to keep working to pay her bills, and because she had clients and staff that was counting on her. So she made an appointment with her grief every day, and she allowed herself to fall apart, and then she would close her notebook or close her Bible, and she'd be like, okay, and now I'm going to go live my life, because the person who passed away wouldn't want her to be completely like a shell of herself, right? So I would say like do those kind of emotional things to get yourself internally healthy first. And then once you feel like you're in a good mind space, I really like this idea of 4 helpful lists. It was something we used at the church. So the lists are what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, and what's confused. And you can kind of just like brain dump those things. If it's someone, like if you're married, maybe you do this with your spouse. Or if you're running a business, maybe you do it with like your right hand person, like, or your whole team. And then whatever's in the right column, those are the things we want to optimize. Whatever in the wrong column, we want to fix it somehow, figure out a plan. If something's missing, obviously we want to add it. And then if it's confused, we're going to try to clarify it. So it sounds super simple, but it gives you like a really tactical understanding of like what's actually going on here and how can we build a plan to start fixing those things. So, I would say even if you do that exercise or some version of it, don't try to fix everything in one week or like immediately. Give yourself grace to just do one thing at a time. I have a coach who a month or two ago was doing this like 1% better challenge. She was like, every day I'm going to do one thing or whatever just to be 1% better. And so think about that. She also says like the people who succeed at like entrepreneurship and business ownership long term are the ones who consistently show up with a B- effort, not A plus, which is real
Mm.
hard for me because I'm an A plus gal. You know what I mean? But she's right. Like we have to, if we can just do one small thing every day, or just, how can we tackle one problem at a time and then feel good about that? That is going to help like reorder things in a way that serves us well. And then I don't know, the last thing I would say is just like ask for help, whether that's going to see a counselor or talking to a friend. Working at church, we had small groups and different like pastoral groups for life change seasons like that. And, we co regulate, right? We don't actually like regulate our emotions in isolation most of the time. And so if we can be with people that are like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing that too. We don't feel alone, and we feel more empowered to be able to fix the things and like less overwhelmed. So, yeah.
There were so many nuggets in there. I know myself. The biggest one that you said is scheduled grief. And I think you could take that not just for grief, but just space. Like, again, going back to the hustle and bustle of life, that's a system that, like, I legit need to put in my calendar. Like, I need to put like think time or
Yes.
emotional time, like, and actually schedule it out because otherwise it's not going to be there. Just like working out or exercising, like,
Mm,
I don't know, that is always on my back burner and it's like, oh, I don't have time. So that's the thing that's going to drop. And I think that's so powerful of not just like your to-do list, which I shouldn't say just your to-do list. Your to-do list should contain that mentally emotional aspect too.
mhm.
Because if you are not showing up for yourself from a mental emotional standpoint, like, how are you showing up in all the other tasks you're doing? So
Right.
that right there is like a nugget I'm gonna start utilizing. I love that.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Um, but I think it's also like it's huge. We do a similar aspect. I have a similar worksheet where we mark down like 10 things that you are like, "Ugh, I don't love doing, but like I do them." And it could be anything from, dishes to cleaning. And it's a stop, delegate, or systemize.
Mm,
So after you get those lists down or like the things that you do, can you stop doing them? Like
mm,
on my stop list was scrolling because that
mm.
was a time suck for me and it was not serving me. Now, do I still scroll? Yes. But it's in like my free time, not in my work time.
Right.
Um, so scrolling and then systemizing and delegating, we hired a cleaner. And so now I
Mhm.
get four, actually, we barter with our cleaner. She gets adjusted from a chiropractic standpoint, and then I get a clean house. And so I think
Amazing.
sometimes women think they have to do it all, and that's hard in the systems when there is so much to do. But how can you ask for help? How can you systemize? Or even just like, I'm sure you know this, like in the busyness of older kids and activities, the running from one thing to a one thing. So like, where's your tribe? Like, hey, I'll pick up your kid and bring him home if you do
Mhm.
mine on this day. And how much time is that saving? Or how is that, systemizing something that you both are going to and you live 2 blocks away anyway. So it's
Right.
really not that big of a deal. So I think that's huge when you start to really look at like, where can you gain another hour or two, not to do more, but to maybe schedule more grief time or
Yeah.
schedule more think time or to have coffee or,
Right.
to just sit or pray or read the Bible, whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
So I think that's so powerful. And you had so many nuggets in there. So let me ask you personally, like, what are your maybe apps, maybe it's not apps, maybe it's tools, tricks that you use on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis that are like game changers for you.
Yeah. So I think, especially in this busy season, and this kind of goes back to our conversation around like what do you do when something stops working, right? Our Google Calendar, like I have a business one, a personal one, and then I have like our family one. So our kids have phones and they all have it installed on their phone so that they can look at it. And this is kind of one of the systems that works for us is they are responsible for either adding something to the calendar or telling
Mm,
me and I can add it, so that we don't miss things, right? So again, this goes back to like we want to serve our people. I don't want my kids to miss out on things that they want to do. If they're able to do it, I would like them to be able to do it. But if it's not on the
mm-hmm,
calendar and we don't know about it, we can't do it, right? So that's kind of a system of like communication that we have. But even that, this season got so busy that that by itself like stopped working for us. So I have the paper tablet I was talking about is called a Remarkable tablet, and it doesn't connect to the internet other than like I can connect it to my Google Drive if I want to pull in a document and take notes on it or something. But what I started doing was what I did in high school when I had a really busy life, and what I did like when I started my business, which was I would look ahead at the week. And it's so hard because it feels like I don't ever have time for this, but I have to do it. Otherwise I drown. And I like plan out, okay, what are the things that what are my meetings and like kind of big rocks that I'm responsible for each of those days. And then my to-do list is separate. So it's like the first page is Monday, here's my schedule. And then Monday, here's my to-do list. And
Mm.
it helps me to just not try to over schedule myself, because before I was like making my to-do list every day. And in my mind, I told myself, if I don't finish it today, I'll just move it till the next day. But then I kept moving so many things that I like felt this terrible shame spiral where I was like, I was feeling anxious at the end of the day because I was like, I'm not getting anything done, even though I felt like I just did all the forms for the summer camps. You know what I mean? So it
Mm-hmm.
was like minimizing my like number of things I held myself accountable for or expected of myself, while at the same time like kind of being realistic. So something about I would look at the Google Calendar to know what I was responsible for doing that day, but I had to like write it down. I think there's also science that shows like when we write things, it sticks better in our brain.
Yes, there is.
So, yeah, so I'm like some of that analog stuff, like again, I don't have any shame about that. Like that's what works. I like writing things down with like a real kind of paper pen type situation. So that helps. And then I was telling you before this, there's this new thing I found. I say don't like click on all the things and don't look at all the ads, because you'll get overwhelmed. But this one was like magical. It's called Forage, and it's like an email, I don't know, cleanup tool. It like comes into your Gmail and it sorts all of your emails and files them into folders for you. And then it sends you like a recap, and you can get it once a day or twice a day. And it's like, here's how many newsletters you got today. Here's like notification emails. So it's just so great because before we were getting bombarded, as you can imagine, like 4 kids at 3 schools, so many emails, so many. And so I was like, I'm missing the things that are important because my inbox is so full that I just don't have time to look at all of the emails and sort them. So this has really helped me to just look at it in a much cleaner way and not have to sort everything on my own and really see the things that are important. So that's the like most recent one that I'm like obsessed with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does it have the capabilities, like if you, let's say you have, 10,000 emails or 20,000 emails,
Mhm.
does it have the capabilities to do it in the
It
like
does now.
past?
I haven't completed it, but it's called like inbox cleanup or something. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it like will file everything away for you. It's quite lovely. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. Cool. I love it. Where can people find you? You obviously do some consulting or coaching. I guess I'm not exactly sure what you call it, but one of the two when it comes to systems. Where can we find more about you, or maybe there's some freebies? Where can people work with you, etc.?
Yeah. So, I do like business consulting is what I'd call it, primarily around systems. And then I'm a Honeybook Pro too. So that's another tool like
Mm,
business specific that I mean, it has just made my life so much easier and caused so much less like anxiety because it will just automatically like send people a link to book a call with me. And then once they pay, it sends them my onboarding form. And so I'm not over here like, oh, I'm holding up the process for them to hire me, right? Like the system
yeah.
does it. So I do have a Honeybook Facebook group, but I would say just like finding my personal profile on Facebook is probably the best way. Just look up Cassie Hayes. I think it's just like facebook.com/Cassie Hayes or Cassie.Hayes or something.
We'll
Um,
have it in the show notes too.
okay, yeah, perfect. I'll send you the link. But that's probably the best way. Just shoot me like a quick message and tell me like what's your pain point that you're trying to solve, and that way I can kind of guide you to the right, resource that I have or make the best recommendation. So, see, because I have systems to help me with things, I have time to actually talk to you on Facebook Messenger.
I love it. I love it, which so many more people need, right?
Mhm.
I love it. Okay. So I end all the podcasts with guests of this is, what is one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners of how to love themselves and their life more fully?
I mean, this sounds kind of cliche or maybe overused, but I would go back to that gratitude piece. And just again, like we talked about before, like thinking through where are you today and what things were you hoping that your life would be that you you actually are living them out right now, but our society is always thinking about like what's the next like mountain we can climb, what's the next thing we can achieve. And so looking back to remember how far you've come, I think is such a helpful exercise because it takes you out of that space of, again, anxiety or shame, or like I should be doing something more or better or something else, and bringing you back to like, no, actually, this is like what I dreamed for or hoped for. Um, and and being grateful for that and embracing the people in your life that kind of helped you get to that point. I love sending friends like a quick text just to say like, hey, I know it's been 5 years since we talked, but this one time that you said this thing to me, like it really meant a lot to me, and I just want you to know, right? Like who doesn't want to get that text? So trying to stay connected with your people that have kind of got you to this point and embracing that gratitude.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Love Your Life and Yourself. I hope today's episode gave you one more tool or one more truth to help you thrive in your health, happiness, and resilience. Remember, loving yourself isn't selfish, it's leadership. And it's the foundation for building a life that actually feels like yours. If this spoke to you, hit that follow button, leave a review, and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. And if you want to dive even deeper, grab a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Love Your Life and Yourself. It's the heart behind this podcast, and it's helped thousands of women step into a life they actually love. You can find it at drashleyrath.com or through the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care of you and keep choosing to love your life and yourself.